We are going beyond purpose. My guest today is a force of nature.
You're doing so many things, how does it tie together? And the one thing that I see synergy in is understanding rejection, setbacks, blocks, failure.
He's inspired audiences across the globe to embrace discipline, resilience, and personal growth.
Pain builds you, rejection builds you. That's what builds your character and allows you to deal with pressure. So I look for pain now. Pain now, pleasure later.
Welcome to Limitless. I'm Lisa Allen. This show is about helping you unlock your full potential through mindset, courage, and the power to turn struggle into strength. I hope you came prepared to learn and level up your life today. We are going beyond purpose. We are going to share lessons for you to grow and pass on to the next generation. My guest today is a force of nature. He is a master of mindset, movement, and motivation. Barry Farber is a world-renowned business strategist, entrepreneur, inventor, agent, speaker, best-selling author, and martial artist whose career has spanned over 4 decades. He's written more than a dozen books, translated into 25 languages, including Diamonds in the Rough and the 12 Clichés of Selling. He's inspired audiences across the globe to embrace discipline, resilience, and personal growth. He's also the founder of Farber Training Systems, where he's coached Fortune 500 companies, entrepreneurs, and elite athletes to break through barriers and reach peak performance. What truly sets Barry apart is his unique blend of business savvy and martial arts mastery. A black belt weapons expert and tournament champion, Barry believes that pain is a teacher, failure is fuel, and the hardest struggles shape the strongest souls. Eternally hungry for learning, he's hosted over 400 radio and TV segments, interviewing some of the most inspiring and brilliant minds on this planet. And we are lucky to have him today here on Limitless. Barry, it is such an honor to have you here.
Great to be here. And congratulations on this show, Limitless. It's awesome. You deserve this.
Thank you so much. I mean, you are not only a legend, but you are evolving into, you're a legend. I mean, I do a lot of research on my shows before I sit down with people, and individuals who you've interviewed, from the most ordinary person to the most famous person, you treat everyone with value and compassion, and you're truly interested in what matters to people, and you have no pretense about it. And so you're evolving into a mentor for me. I have to admit, that's first that my audience is hearing this.
Thank you.
And what really inspires me is you are so multifaceted and layered, right? It's kind of like an onion. Every time you peel back a layer, I think I've gotten to know you 100%. And then there's another layer because you're inventing something, you're doing a new project, you're doing backflips, and you're hitting things with swords and splitting wood. You just have this incredible energy, and I really want to know, where does this energy come from? Where's your fountain of energy just flow from?
Well, you know, people say you're doing so many things, how does it tie together? And the one thing that I see synergy in is understanding rejection, setbacks, blocks, failure. You know, people say that, you know, this failed, and I never look at that. I look at the energy that gives you to get back up. In martial arts, my sensei, Shihan Mark Walker, taught me a valuable lesson about rolling, that when you roll, when you're knocked down and you roll properly, it's allowing you to get back up for a future strike. And I think about any kind of failure, any kind of setbacks, as when you take that, failing isn't falling as long as you don't fail to get back up and use that intelligence, use that knowledge to propel yourself further. And sometimes, you know, in the beginning, getting rejections on all kinds of different deals, you could take it personally, and a lot of people do, but what you need to do is understand that there's other ways to do it, and that's what builds you. Pain builds you. Rejection builds you. That's what builds your character and allows you to deal with pressure. It was funny, on the way over here, I was listening to Billy Joel's Pressure song, right? You know, you have no scars on your face, you don't understand pressure. I think every time something happens to me, I say that's good. Now, I don't wish adversity on people. I don't wish that I go and get knocked down in different ways, but I find that in the past, all those situations gave a foundation that allowed you to move forward intelligently, efficiently, and really understand everything. Because there's a saying that we learn from our actions and we act from our learning. Both together provide invincible truth. In other words, you just can't, be like a bull in a china shop and keep going after something. Eventually you have to think about and learn to be able to move better. So I found that, the pain, rejection, setbacks, that fuels my energy. Because this way you look forward to it. You don't fight it, or you don't, run away from it.
Yeah. I watched a few of your sales videos, and you've interviewed other people, talking about how to be a better salesperson. When you think about sales and you're selling to someone, you've actually turned that on its head, and you've said to people, you really need to connect and find what people care about. There's a quote that you always say about being in service. And what is that quote?
There's a quote I learned from my favorite book, I Dare You, which said, catch a passion for helping others and a richer life comes back to you. What's great about this show, and you'll learn, is that I found that interviewing, whether it's radio, television, podcasts, whatever it is, or columns, when you pull in information from people, it's like people graduate from a university or high school, and there's a commencement speech. Commencement means the beginning of learning. So this is an opportunity to be able to learn constantly. So when you think about the rejection, you wouldn't believe how many times it's a novelty, it won't work. I've gotten hundreds of rejections on that product, but that product gave me more business in other areas and categories because of how I leveraged that feedback or that knowledge that you gain from learning how a mold's made, how to license something, patents, dealing with retailers, contracts, selling to 3M, to companies that you start learning things from when you put yourself out there and you get rejected a lot. You start learning valuable lessons that allow you to move forward better in the future. So I find when you say about selling is that nobody ever lists themselves out of a sale.
Right. I love that.
Nobody ever, so it's a great opportunity. Here you're sitting here, you're learning from people, and I feel like I should be paying for those situations, because the amount of knowledge that you gain from other people and other avenues or professions is what allows you to keep moving forward with more intelligence.
So let's talk about pain and pleasure, because they're two competing forces that are they're intertwined. You can't separate them in order to have a limitless life. So let's talk about, what does that mean? Because everybody tries to avoid pain in life. Like, we've become a society where everything is about pleasure. The minute we sense a bit of pain, we're looking for something to bring us back to that balance of homeostasis, right, of pleasure. But too much pleasure can be detrimental. So talk to me about, what does pain and pleasure mean to you?
So I look for pain now. Pain now, pleasure later. My son, actually, Sam, I'm talking to him, and he says he's reading this thing about dopamine and the fact that, let's say somebody does drugs, or has a fried chicken and is eating one of their favorite foods, or they get pleasure out of that, right? And the dopamine is there. You get that feeling, that high sensation. But you come down after that, especially with drugs, you come down, right? And you pay for that after. You pay for the pain. Versus, let's say you wake up in the morning and you're tired and you don't feel like working out and it's cold out and you got so much stuff to do and you're feeling pain or whatever it is, you go and you jump out and you start moving around and you start working out and you get to the gym or whatever it is. And that initial pain of working out, whatever, then becomes the dopamine, that high sensation you get, like that runner's high afterwards. So I've been that's changed my life, to understand how to look at pain as like, something that powers you, that gets you to go forward and allows you to go through things where people would just give up and walk away or fear it, and just embrace it. So I'll give you an example.
Oh, here we go.
So
wait,
I mean,
let me move my...
like if let's just hit. So you knock over a book. I could keep hitting that. Now, why do I do that? Now, I hope I didn't disrupt you.
Not at all.
Okay.
This is good.
I knew that.
This is part of life, right?
Well, so when you're hitting yourself like that, there's a reason I'm going to give that as an example.
Yep.
So in martial arts, it taught me that there's, micro, like there's skin damage that happens when you do small pound, like it's called iron palm. When I use raw rice, then you go to sand, then you go to pebbles, then you go to.
I've seen you do the video where you reach in.
Right, well that you grab it too for strength in your hand, but a lot of times you hit that certain ways and it does create microscopic tears in your skin, in the muscle fibers that actually repair themselves to be more resilient and stronger. And I found this out by these metal rings I would use that I put on my arm. They're 2.5 pounds each. I saw this years ago in a martial arts demonstration, and what they do is, it allows you to hold a weapon or hold any kind of weapon, so you can train with that with, let's say, 40 pounds on your arms, and you do slow motion so that you're getting the small little muscles, which are really important. But the funny thing is it was hitting my arm all the time. In the beginning, it started to hurt. Now I take it, and I'm talking about every day for 15, 20 minutes for the last 20 years. Something strange happens. I don't do anything crazy, but, at night, I make sure I hit everywhere, as hard as you can. Like as hard as you can all over your body. And eventually what happens is those hits become a resiliency that later on you can do anything. I mean, I've fallen and rolled in certain things where I don't understand why there's no damage. But the key is, by the mile it's a trial, by the yard it's hard, but by the inch it's a cinch. And people don't realize that you just don't go and kick banana trees. You see these people kicking in there and you deform yourself. People deform their knuckles so they create one knuckle. I don't like that. I don't think you should deform your body. But when you do it in small progression over time, it has a resiliency. And that doesn't matter if it's martial arts, if it's selling a pen getting rejected, if it's in life you're getting rejected. Though that incoming feedback about how you deal with that pressure, that pain, allows you to build something up for the future that gives you a foundation that nobody can knock down.
When you talked about dopamine, the author of Dopamine Nation talked about that we are changing as a society because we have our phones. It dings every few minutes, right? So we're getting these constant, quick rewards. And it is physiologically changing how we approach life. And because we're constantly getting rewards quickly, that means we are truly seeking pleasure at all times, and that we are literally becoming weaker as a society because we avoid pain. I don't know if you've ever heard the saying, where the wound happens, the light comes in. Mm-hmm. That's a powerful statement to me.
Absolutely.
Right? It talks about when you hit your body and you build those little tears. The same thing happens with our brain. Mm-hmm. When I went back for my master's, I was in my 40s.
Good for you.
And I sat in the classroom for the first time, and I was not the oldest one, but I was almost the oldest one. And I thought, am I going to be able to get through this in my 40s? I'm going to have to study all over. I'm going to have to learn how to read in a different way and write in a different way, take tests again. And I remember every time, like I close my eyes and I think about walking through the door, every time I finished a semester. And I would look at my kids in the eyes, and I was like, I did it! Another semester down. And the pain was worth it.
Absolutely.
Every moment. And when I graduated and I walked across that stage and my kids were there to see it happen, that would not have been possible had I folded to the pain. And I want everybody to feel that that is a moment of limitlessness.
Mm-hmm. You embrace some suffering, some pain to get through it, but you always get that reward afterwards, but it takes time. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So you've written, I was saying in the intro, you've written numerous books, over a dozen books, and these are some examples of...
those are some of the foreign
books. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is incredible. And I was referencing Diamond in the Rough. I feel like this is such a metaphor for you because you are multifaceted. You don't stop. There's nothing in life that you don't think you can accomplish. When you grew up, was it that you were always this way and you just sort of built the blocks on top? Or was there a moment in your life that was transformational, that made you who you are today?
You have good questions. So if I look back in my childhood, there's many things. I used to jump my Stingray bicycle over garbage cans thinking I was Evel Knievel. And later, was the agent for Evel Knievel. It was the greatest reward in the world, and I can tell that story. But I think the biggest change was my parents moved us from Maplewood to Livingston when I was like 17, I think, 16. And I'm in, in a school where I don't know anybody. I think that was the greatest lesson in the world. When at that age in high school, you have your peer groups, you have your, all these different, connections and stuff. And I'm a big believer in that. You don't get pulled into a group. The groups, you want to be liked by the group, that stifles your potential. It doesn't allow you to try things different. So I think that change allowed me to not be afraid of being ridiculed, because you're a different person in a different environment, and it's not easy to move to a new school. So I think that was a one piece. But I think the biggest moment in my life was years ago, maybe 2011 it was. I got gout. I didn't know I had gout. I thought I broke my foot or toe, or one doctor said it might be a chip of a bone in there that you did during martial arts and you're rolling and fighting. So after I found out it was gout, I didn't know anything about it, but it's painful. It's the greatest pain I ever had. I would never trade. If somebody said to me, would you go back, and if somebody can say you don't have gout anymore, you never got gout, I would never trade it for anything. Because what it made me do was examine the human body and understand what is that. It's purines that are in all foods that settle into your joints, and shellfish and beer and the meats and so forth, that when your kidneys can't flush, and I eat a lot of shellfish, I love shellfish, and your kidneys can't flush that, they settle in your joints like glass-like particles that create immense pain. And I remember lying in my bed one night. You couldn't even put a sheet on your toe, a tissue on your toe. It's so much. It's like somebody's taking a hammer with a nail and just constantly hitting it in there. And I was saying, this is crazy. I started breathing and doing this, but then I started to go crazy, because this is where it went from physical to mental. Mental anguish is something that can make breakthroughs or make you break. And what happened was, I was in Florida and my boys were golfing, and they set this whole golf outing up, and I get a gout attack. And I'm sitting in my hotel room in beautiful Florida, and they got this, and I wanted to play golf with my boys. It was never more frustrating. I said to myself, that's it. I'm going to find out everything I can about this body that I have, and what's going on in the body. And I went to Eastern, Western medicine. I read everything I could get my hands on. And the great thing about television is, I know you know that I had a bunch of scientists, MIT scientists, doctors who are well known in understanding how to treat the whole body with food. Let food be thy medicine. So I went on a run like crazy and understood that my doctor, you need allopurinol, you need colchicine, you need all these different drugs that'll take care of it so you can eat what you want. And I said, I don't want that, because I had side effects that were just not what I wanted. So I decided to do it all food. And I think what happened was,
you chose not doing the prescriptions.
Yeah,
the medicines.
All based on food. And what happened was, it's painful. Okay, you're going out with your friends. There's 20 people around, right? We go out with this, the boys' night out. 20 people at the table. They're all having steaks. All right, and I'm getting cauliflower steak and a salad.
Oh.
So one guy goes over to me, a friend of mine, Gary, says, "Hey, Farbs, aren't you going to be lonely?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Yeah, when nobody's around and you're still living." It was funny at the time, because I think about peer pressure, and you're there, and yes, I did have cravings, but after a while your taste buds change, your cell structure changes, and then you enjoy certain foods, the whole food, plant-based lifestyle, and that changed everything. My doctor then started to use me because I got my uric acid at normal and below normal. That usually it takes you years to do. I did it in like 6 months, but totally focused on a plant-based whole foods to get that to that point. Do I have wild salmon once in a while? Yes. Do I have eggs once in a while? Yes. There's certain things I still do. I'm not a vegan, although I definitely admire the people that do that for the animal cruelty and everything. But I think that experience of understanding how the body works, there was many pain elements in that, not just the gout, but later, not having things that you enjoyed the pleasure from.
Right.
You sacrifice the pleasure, but then, and you have painful situations. Not painful, it's almost like withdrawals. You smell somebody cooking a hamburger, and you've been eating that your whole life, and then you get these cravings, but eventually it goes away, but you have to stick with it. And I think that was the greatest lesson in my life, because I realized that when you say, how do you get energy, the beginning question, I think that's based upon what you eat, how you move, how you think, and surrounding yourself in an environment and people that build you up, that don't give you false promises. Oh, you're the best. That are definitely sincere and give you constructive criticism, but also they're just such a platform because we become the people we surround ourselves on the average. If you're all these people just complaining and just constantly down and so forth, you'll become just like them. Sometimes, unfortunately, it's in your own family sometimes,
right.
And not direct family, sometimes your extended people and so forth, and you just have to eliminate that. I just believe that. Life is too short. It's just too short.
Misery loves company.
Oh, yeah.
I always tell my kids, you are you're the average of your top 5 friends, because who you hang out with is who you become. If they're motivated and they're doing good works, you will be a part of that, right? People like to draw you in no matter which way they're going. So now, your books are all about how people can succeed. And there are different themes. There's character, there's discipline, there's resilience. And now I'm just going to say something and you'll correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like a lot of what you've written and the human behavior that you've discovered has now been wrapped up and put into this book, The Adventures of Little Billy in the Search of the Magic Tree. I'm going to take this out over here. So tell me about this book, because this life has been all about developing you, developing others, and as adults. But what does this represent?
So that book is something that my daughter got me motivated to do. And so if you take all the information in these books, what I wanted to do with these books is some of it is my ideas, dealing with selling products to companies or inventing things, whatever it might be, and licensing and all that. But what I always like to do is collect information from a variety of professions. We have billionaires to brain surgeons, sports legends to entertainers, inventors, finance people, people that went through a lot of adversity for diamonds under pressure, diamonds in the rough, to understand what is it about, like I always ask this question, what's your definition of success? And they would give me multiple different answers, but usually it came down, I kind of compressed everything in here to the 5 elements of what it takes to live a successful life or enjoy yourself. Now, what are those 5 elements? So that I was reading a story. I would make up stories to my daughter while I took, and my 2 boys, but especially to Hallie, she would, and I talk about this, this kid would go through the woods and learn lessons, and I just made stuff up, and every night it would change, it would be different. So eventually what I realized is I wanted to figure a way to transfer the knowledge that I got from the interviews and the research from my books into a children's book that we can now read to kids and let them have that at an early age. The foundation then is so critical. And you want me to give away the secrets?
Well,
yeah, it's all right.
It would be nice to talk, high level what the values are, the characteristics, and who played, what voices are in here, because I also think that's part of the charm of your book. Who are the voices?
Yeah, sure.
Well, you'll tell what you want to tell, but leave them wanting some more so that they'll go and buy the book.
Well, I'll tell you the few key secrets. Lawrence the Owl is the voice played by my son, and that's about patience and about his message is help all the animals that you see and you will find the magic tree, which is a service-oriented message. And I found that from every one of these interviews of the top achievers, that they looked at ways to serve who they're in front of with their skills and knowledge and build them up in a way, and it comes back to them tenfold. We can get anything in life as long as we help others get what they want. What is it that service does? It shows that you care, and it shows empathy. So empathy was another piece of the message, which was Rupert the Toad, looking on the inside, who was, bullied by the bully frog. But empathy for others and listening. But I think the critical one, Bosco the Bear, was played by Bobby Collins, the comedian, was about attitude. You can change a lot of things. I used to do a lot of hiring, and when I found somebody come in and maybe they didn't have the background or the schooling or whatever, but this person had the greatest attitude, was resilient, got rejected and tested on calls, and I just felt like that is more important because you can learn the knowledge and the products and so forth, but to have a resilient attitude to keep coming back and staying positive was critical. So, between service, patience, attitude, courage, empathy, determination, all the characters built in. We had Otis Anderson, MVP of the Super Bowl, play the voice of Sherman the Turtle. Sherman the Turtle never gives up. I wanted it to be an entertaining format for kids. So grandparents and parents have given feedback that it's just the kids love it. They want to know the secrets. They want to, they get a connection with the animals. So
we need more of that. I think that we've sort of lost our way. When my kids were little, the theme at Franklin Elementary is character counts. It's really about characters, what we do when we think no one is watching. I've told my kids, do the right thing always. There's never the wrong time to do the right thing, right? And so these are incredible values that I think that we, bringing them back to children to be able to arm them, and talking about, that pain pleasure, where there's a world full of pleasure, but there's very little pain. This kind of points them in the direction on what are really great values that will take you further in life. And patience is one that I need to learn. Maybe we'll have a whole show on patience.
Let me say something about patience, because patience is important. And I learned it over years, and you do learn it. And you realize you got to walk away from some things, let it settle, let your mind settle, come back more, refreshed. But there is a saying that things will come to those who wait, but only the things left after those who hustle. And I loved it because sometimes there's situations where you got to dive in and do something, because eventually something's going to happen. And sometimes that action, even the rejection or the setback or the failure or the mistake, teaches you more than any patience might. So there's a balance there, but patience is critical, and I'm still learning.
Yeah, me too, every day. I think there's a connection between patience and wisdom. So if we continue to seek to learn and truly understand ourselves and how we give back to the world and how do we become higher beings, that wisdom helps with some of that underlying patience. So I have a long way to go. We're winding down, but I want to talk about the Folds Flat pen. Tell me, did you bring any with you?
I always have one. We have one that you can show.
Yeah.
You'll see with Keenan Thompson demonstrating the newest model. We just got a new patent on, but this was the old one. I keep it in my wallet because it's flat. And then, it has somebody you know.
Wait,
right?
I want to show this to the audience. I love this. So what was the inspiration for that?
Well, I was co-invented of the first one with my partner. We came up with so many different designs, and basically if you listen to this snap, probably could hear it better if I put it next to you. Hear it snap?
Yeah.
That was almost a mistake, because the sound-wise, because in the mold we had to make the locks critical so that it made that sound so that it would stay together. It used to be something where you would plug in the two pieces, and now you don't have to look at it. But that snapping became like almost, stress reliever, right?
Yeah.
But I use this pen as a metaphor, because you wouldn't believe how many rejections. Got rejected, even QVC rejected several times. I came down there, had a meeting, and I said to her, I'll tell you what, if we don't sell out, I'll walk home from Pennsylvania. I said that to her. She started laughing.
Of course you would.
I think I spilled coffee on her too. It was the worst meeting. But what happened was I just listened. All I asked her was, what are the key things that work really well on QVC? And she goes, well, it's got to be demonstrable, it's got to be different, and it's got to wow the audience. So in other words, I asked her everything possible to understand what she looks for. So then when demonstrating it, it had all those capacities. But I look at this because rejection, when you fall flat like this pen, the only way to succeed is to unfold new opportunities by getting back up. So I look at it that way. I look at the unfolding process. So I think it was a metaphor for everything else, because many times I would be in situations where people say, look, we want you to speak about the Folds Flat pen. We want, I love that pen. Or I would leave it with people. They would call me. They keep it for years. And it becomes something that also opens up other doors to other opportunities that you don't see. That's why it's so critical to realize that every experience and every setback is going to be setting you up for something else later in a different category, and to take advantage of that.
And Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank has a pen. And tell me about Keenan. You were mentioning.
Well, that's the new model that I created with Roland Crines of Crines Creations. He's a master jeweler. He creates manufacturers for the biggest name brands in the world, but he's a genius, and he was the only one that could look at the product and create a jewelry piece that would be patented for something as a high end that actually closed by itself.
Wow.
Problem with kids is they'll open it up and adults won't know. They'll say, oh, this is cool. And the kids, because they know Transformers and their brain isn't thinking only one way, they're the ones who 9 out of 10 put it together. Most adults, 1 out of 10 or 5 out of 10 don't. So I think finding Roland to understand how to look at the locks differently, how to create a new patent on different versions. He races Porsche with his son around the country and used a lot of the technology they have on that car there for the pen. He doesn't give up either. He just was, I mean, I give all the credit in the world for the new model that we came out to him, because he never gave up and he came up with new ideas. And I think people would say, you're still selling that thing? It's just been the greatest experience in the world to understand, never give up, and use these. There's so many contacts. That's how I met Keenan. Was at dinner. I walked over. I said, you know, my kids are big fans. Maybe bigger than me, but they're big fans, and they love you. And he goes, oh, sit down. So he's talking. I said, and I showed him the pen, and he goes, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. He says, I'm going to make you one. So we took him to the studio, and we made him a pen, and that's. There's a lot. I'm the first time I'm actually talking about this on your show, because I want you to have that special video.
Let's roll the video for the audience.
My name is Keenan Thompson. I'm demonstrating a wonderful gift that my friend Mr. Barry Farber gave me. It is the coolest money clip pen that you've ever seen in your life. That's the money clip, as you can see, iced out. Thank you very much. And you squeeze here. Take that money clip piece off, and then you slightly unfold, and it becomes a pen just like that. Magic and beautiful. And then you can easily put it all back to your money clip. I hope you guys get one.
High five on that one.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. So tell me about the relationship with Evel Knievel.
So Evel Knievel's bodyguard introduced me to Robbie Knievel, okay, who he was also worked with, and the bodyguard for him too. And we were going to have him jump over a roller coaster. But the Six Flags CEO at the time said, I'd rather have Evel Knievel's name that we can make a roller coaster after. And they spent about $7 million building a roller coaster in St. Louis called the Evel Knievel roller coaster. And the key thing is here's the funny thing about ego. There's a lot of people, whether it's Jackie Mason, you know, Evel Knievel had the biggest ego in the world, and a healthy ego, okay? And I'm on the phone with him, he says, Barry, you know, and he's on morphine drip right now. He's going through massive pain, and, you know, think about how many bones he broke in all his jumps. And he goes, Barry, why should I have you represent me? Who are you? And then I started saying, well, I got, you know, Jackie Mason, the TV show, when others couldn't. I am the manager and agent for Andy McDonald, 12-time world champion skateboarder, and he's doubles partners with Tony Hawk. And all I hear pauses go, Jackie Mason, he's not even a has-been, and Tony Hawk is a pimple on my, you know what. Okay, so whatever, he was, you know, he's just saying to me, and I'm saying to myself, who am I to try to impress Evel Knievel? This the wrong approach. And then I just paused and I said, Evel, when I was 13 years old, I took my Schwinn Stingray, and my father built me a ramp, and I jumped over garbage cans on Saturday morning, and I thought I was you before I watched you jump over buses on ABC Wild World of Sports. And I said, it would be an honor to represent you, you know, because I'm thinking about when I was a kid. And he goes, Barry, let me tell you what I am. First of all, and then he goes through all the things he's accomplished to let me know more about what he's done. You know, all you got to do is get him talking for 10 minutes, and it was done. He goes, let's do this thing, you know. So anyway, that was a long story short. It was a lot of work, but they made a roller coaster for Evel Knievel. But I think, you know, I used to skateboard and jump with my bike when I was a kid in the 70s, and that was exciting for me. There was something about a thrill there that I always had a passion for. It made my heart beat more. It made you feel alive when you're trying to take a chance. I do believe in really doing it right, and there's a saying, there's safety and risk.
Yep.
And risk and safety. You know, when you play it safe all the time, you're not really learning anything. You're not putting yourself to the test of building the character inside that all that rejection and pressure does build. Yeah. So skateboarding and then representing Andy McDonald, the world champ, this guy, and he's a legend because he didn't do drugs, he didn't smoke, he didn't have any tattoos. He came from Boston, and the guy trained like an animal. 2 hours in the morning, be ahead of everybody there. He would do tricks like that you would never see before because he would be perfect on them because he trained so hard. And I really respected that. And I felt that even though he had more than 30 rejections on his book, Simon & Schuster finally took the book because they saw something in him that was really good for kids. He was written up in Sports Illustrated as mother approved because, you know, of all the different You know, nobody's like him in sports. Nobody does that. He eats candy. That's his downfall. He loves licorice.
Well, you know, you got to have one thing in your life that is a downfall, right?
Something.
Right. That's a really inspiring story. We're winding down, and I have some really important lightning round questions. Alive or dead? Who do you want to spend an hour with?
Oh, that's a new one. Who do I want to spend an hour with? My father, probably.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's powerful. What do you want written on your tombstone?
He got back up.
Oh my God, I love that. Your mission statement.
Well, I did have this on a board because I write down, you know, there's many things, you know, to focus on and goals and stuff, but to be your own self at your very best all the time is a challenge, okay? To be your own self, transparency. I've learned, I wish years ago I felt this way, but I don't really care anymore what people think. Yeah, sure, you want the feedback and the nice, you know, but I really don't anymore. And my friends and family will say that's true because I do things, and I get in trouble too sometimes because I just feel like that's a good way to live life, this is who I am, you know? To be your own self at your very best, that's, you know, to be on every single time, to be focused. You know, one thing I did for your show is I fast every 2 weeks. I decided to do it today because I think sometimes you're much clearer in the morning. But, you know, to be your own self at your very best, I find I'm best when I put myself through situations that are scary, that I fear, that I'm not used to, that I don't know anything about. So, you know, you got to be on all the time as much as you can and focused. And all the time, to be your own self at your very best all the time. That was from I Dare You, that book. So I find that's important. But our rewards in life are in direct proportion to our service. And that was a quote by Earl Nightingale, which was it was the strangest secret I listened to many years ago that talked about we become what we think about. Who do you surround yourself with? What are you reading? What are you putting in here? What are you challenging yourself with? That's who you become. You become what you think about, the strangest secret in the world. He came up with the secret, which then later years somebody else did. But Earl Nightingale, the strangest secret, said that piece that your rewards in life are in direct proportion to your service. What are you giving back? So I think that's, you know, you have to think about that every time you're, you know, working on a project.
Final question. And you probably answered it in some ways already, but for anyone out there who is feeling like they're not making it or they're not getting to the next level, what do you tell them how to be limitless?
Well, you really have to know the individual. Everybody's different. And, you know, there was a book written once, I think it was called Don't Fire 'Em, Fire 'Em Up. And I disagreed with that. I said, you know, fire them. Fire the ones that aren't fired up. Fire the ones that aren't working. I had sales teams and I'd come into a sales team managing and the top guy was 80% of quota. So everybody looked at that person as the achiever. So if I'm at 75%, I'm doing great because he's at 80 and, you know, no, you got, when I fired this one person who I really liked, I liked him a lot, but he didn't want to work. He didn't want to make the calls. He didn't want to, you know, I mean, I really liked him, but after I fired him, we had the best month because people realized that you're not going to, you know, survive on something like that, and it's better. And he actually went into a different field and did really well, and not sales, and so it was almost a blessing. But I think we underestimate the power of not trying to help everybody. I don't know who said this quote, but they didn't know the answer to success because there's so many things to do. You know, attitude, you know, empathy, service. But he knew the answer to failure, and that's try to please everybody. So there's certain people that are going to be miserable, and you can't do anything about it because they need to change. There was a big, I went to Diamond in the Rough. We sold over 1 million copies, and I wanted to get Amway, New Skin, Mary Kay, Shackley, the big multi-level companies at the time that had hundreds of thousands of people in their downline. I went after all of them because they buy a lot of books. And one speech was given by somebody in Amway, and they on the stage, they got from California to New Jersey, they got on the stage, and they only said one thing in 3 seconds. They said, people, if you want to make changes in your life, you have to make changes in your life.
It's simple.
And he walked off.
It's simple, but not easy.
So those are
Right.
the answer to that question. When somebody's, they have to be able to make that first move. They need something that they're passionate about, that makes them hungry, that they like, that they're excited, that they have a talent for, and the work will teach you how to do it. They've got to get up and do it. It was a great teabag message. The work will teach you how to do it. You got to dive in and do it. Sometimes, and it's great to have mentors, wise advisors, people, things you can read, but eventually you've got to take that step yourself.
Yeah. Jack Welch, I saw him speak at JP Morgan to a group of us, the entire company, and he said the one ingredient for him for success was passion. If you're not passionate about it, you're in the wrong place. You got to go find the fire in your belly, what gets you up in the morning, puts you in flow. And sometimes you have to walk through the fire. You got to go do a lot of things you may not be like to figure out that you don't like them, so that eventually you find what really energizes you. And you have to be intentional long term. If you are not happy, and happy is sort of a flippant word, you're not feeling fulfilled, then you need to start intentionally figuring out what part of the day makes me energized. What am I doing in that moment that I'm feeling connected? And that's where you end up saying, that's my passion, and I'll go into that direction. So
you have one life. You gotta look back, and usually we think of the things that were difficult that we talk about. So you gotta look at something that's gonna make you enjoy this short time here.
absolutely. Thank you so much
Yeah,
for being
sure.
here today.
Lisa, you're great. Good luck with this show. It's a terrific show. I've saw some of them already. You're a very good interviewer. Very good.
Thank you. All right. And thank you for joining us today. The takeaway from the show is, do not fear falling, only fear never climbing at all. My hero, Winston Churchill, put it this way: success is not final, failure is not fatal, it's the courage to continue that counts. And today, that's what Barry has emphasized. Pain and pleasure are joined. Everyone fails at some point. You cannot have one without the other. Success happens when we focus on values that are meaningful towards true growth: character, resilience, courage, empathy, and determination. Make this promise to yourself. Today, you will be better than you were yesterday, and you will fail fast forward to your success. And as I always tell my kids, how you do anything is how you do everything, especially the small things, because they shape who we become. If you're interested in learning more about Barry Farber and how to take your life to the next level, check out his website at barryfarber.com. Also, be sure to be on the lookout for his new children's book, In Search of the Magic Tree. The new hardcover is coming out. It's a great gift for family, adults, and children alike. For more programming like this, please visit HTTV's website, YouTube channel, and social media sites listed on the screen below. And until next time, stay limitless.